Today I'm going to be talking about fire by friction in the sort of main camp situation as I am now. Just to the left of me, I've just had a quick go this morning, and you can see I've got a bow drill set here already made up. So I've got a bow, a spindle, a hearth board, a catch tray and a bearing block, all made from natural materials. And you can see I've just made a little ember which is just busily working its way out at the moment. What would normally now happen is I'd tip this into a tinder bundle, blow this up and turn this into a fire, but we're actually going to look at the stage before that today, and that's what this video is all about. So there's a couple of different ways of going about this. You can either find yourself a nice dry cross section of a tree, like this beautiful piece of cedar I've got here, western cedar, and you can split this down as I'm about to show you, and you can create a whole set from within one log, just like that. Or you can get out there and you can pick out all those different working parts from within the natural world around us. Okay, now a lot of these pros and cons, let's think about this now. Some of the stuff you're going to find out there is going to be almost the perfect diameter and size and needs relatively little carpentry to make it go. Balanced against, it's kind of harder to find all the different working parts. Whereas you've got one log, your one go-to, you can go straight into the inside of this and guarantee that it's almost going to be bone dry and good to go. However, this is going to need a lot more carpentry, a lot more processing. It's kind of swings and roundabouts, guys, but it's all good practice, and I fully encourage you to get out there and have a go. So let's jump into this log and let's see if we can get this started. Now, rather than just try and swing at it with the axe, what I'm going to do is place the axe on the corner here and drive it in with my hammer. Okay. Now this is really nice chewy log, so I'm going to have to give this some serious welly. Let's just see how we get on. Man, oh, that was rather epic. So, okay, here we go. I've now got two nice big pieces of cedar here, and I now need to decide what it is I'm going to try and make out of these. So if you look on the end here, I need hearth boards are going to be sort of 1/4 of an inch deep. I'm going to need to make a couple of spindles as well. So what I might do is quarter this now, make 2 spindles out of this piece, make a couple of spindles out of this piece, and anything on the outside can act as a catch tray. Any little pieces, little shards that come off can use to catch the ember. And this half will probably be hearth boards. So let's crack on with that now. There we go, boom, done. So you can see the power of the wedge there, it does its job, you've just got to be patient. Now I'm probably going to want to split this again, and then I'll start to straighten this off and make 2 cylindrical spindles from inside this piece here. Okay, so now what I'm hoping is that you can see exactly how I've broken this thing down. So what I've got here is I've taken this log apart. So this piece here will actually probably make a couple of feather sticks, which you're going to need to get the fire started once you're established. I think I might chop those down, and I might get a couple of catch trays out of these. And these 2 bits at the back here, as these have come away, you can kind of see this is a heartwood and a sapwood. This is in fact pretty much a really good to go, good kind of chunky 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch thick, what will make a lovely hearth board. Now I've got one here to show you, just to give you a kind of idea of what I'm talking about. There's a hearth board. Okay, that's one I've made from a single piece of wood. But when you're busting open bigger logs and bits and pieces like this is an absolute win to find that, because all I've got to do is just trim off this backside here, and I've got a ready-made hearth board. Okay, so next thing I need to do would be to make myself a couple of spindles and do all the carpentry on one of these. Here's a ready-made spindle. That's what we're trying to create from inside there. First thing I want to do is try and get down to almost the diameter that I need from the off. I can achieve that through battening with a peg. Oh. Nevertheless, the knot is holding on to the bitter end. Might just need a bit of brute force and ignorance. Yes, I thought so. What I could actually do at this point is just saw this back end off, because I can see this knot is going to be a problem the whole way through. Cool. And now we start the slightly arduous process of knocking off corners. So I wasn't joking when I said this is going to need carpentry. Okay, it really is. To make this round, it's going to need carpentry. So all I'm doing is using the belly of the blade, working over my right hand side, and just slowly, surely chasing round and chasing off these edges. Now the actual diameter required to do this is a little bit of a contentious issue, and everyone's got their different opinions on this stuff. So again, I'd like to hear yours in the box below. I generally like one that's about 1 inch wide across the top there, and I find that with my shoulder and the way I work with the bow that I use, the turn rate is great. The problems you've got, there are so many variables with this technique, and this is why, again, it's a great combination of skills test. If the turn speed is too fast and the top of the spindle is too narrow, you're just going to bore into that bearing block really fast, and sometimes you don't get enough surface area to create the friction to get the heat you need for the ember to sustain itself. That can be a bit of a snag. Equally, if the surface area is too massive, you're using a lot more effort to turn it to generate the heat. So there is that trade-off culminating point. So you can see that's starting to come in now, and I'll start to work on this end. Remember, if you're getting tired, the knife techniques I showed you before, so we'll turn this over. Have a look at safe use of a knife video, and that will kind of show you some of these techniques. So all the while stopping to readdress and make sure that this cylindrical shape is coming in. I should probably stop at this point and say, look, you can see the amount of carpentry going into this. It's a lot of time and effort. For my mind, it'd be far easier to go and be able to have the knowledge to find the timber in the right diameter to be able to break it off and use it pretty much good to go. But equally, I can't always guarantee that that timber will be bone dry, whereas this is absolutely good to go. So have a think at home. Tell me what you think. Right, I'm going to keep going on this for a bit longer. Okay, so this is where I've got to so far. A little bit more work to do now to actually make this usable to create fire. I'm going to have to decide which end is going to be the sharp and pointy end that sits up inside the bearing block and spins, and which end is going to be the bit that's doing the business and being driven around and around into the hearthboard, with those two surfaces matching on a sort of molecular scale, rubbing to and fro, creating that essential friction, generating that heat to get the powder that's produced right up into the sort of 700 to 800 degree mark. At that point it's hot enough to sustain itself. I think we're going to go with this end being the business end and this end being the sharp and pointy end. Okay, it's a good start. And all I'm doing here is using that push method with my thumb just to push off the edges and make myself a little like an upside down wok. I'm just driving off these edges till I get a sort of dulled point, and it's this dulled point that will get driven as it spins into the board, and it will have to bed into the board first, and then we'll cut out that infamous notch that you always see people catching all the ember from inside. So there we go, so there's a spindle. Now you'll see I'm using the knife further up now near the curve, because I'm looking to scallop out this section through the middle here to make it a bit more uniform. And that's because as this is wearing down, invariably its shoulder will get wider and wider, and it'll cause more and more friction up in the top. And this is not something I want. If we take a look at a bearing block, okay, so that would be sat up inside there, spinning to and fro. I do not want to create fire up here. I want to create fire actually down here at the business end, inside the hearthboard. So to that end, it's always worth taking the time to do the carpentry. That might just about get us started, you know. That should turn nicely. Okay, so you've got your hearthboard. Now, I think I mentioned that this was pretty much a ready-made hearthboard. It wasn't far off. So this will need little work. Just needs the face tidying slightly, like that, and maybe a little bit at the back. And I think that will fit in there quite nicely. Okay, so all I'm going to do is place this down here so you can see that, hopefully. Get this out of the way. And I'm going to mark it with my knife, and then all I'm going to do is work out the outside of that, always working away from yourself. And I'm just creating a space for this to sit as it begins to turn to and fro. I actually prefer to do it this way because I'm right-handed, and I would like the notch to be facing me. Not always, I can do it the other way. The principles are the same, but it's just personal preference. So I mean, your bearing block could be made from pretty much anything. Just so happens I'm going to use a piece of sycamore up here in the camp, but I could actually try and manufacture it out of something here quite easily. But again, to demonstrate this in action, and for the sake of today, I'll just pop this into the spindle, into the bow I've got here in the camp. Put my knife away. So my left foot's going on here. Now we are going to do a whole video on technique, so don't worry, don't watch too closely on that front. But it's just how does this perform, and is this likely to produce fire? So just going to spit in there quickly. Right, cool. Let's give this a turn and see what happens. Okay, that runs really smoothly already, guys. And all I'm doing here is I'm not actually trying to produce fire, I'm just trying to bed, what's called bed in the spindle. So at about 200 degrees we produce smoke, but like I said, we're not trying to make fire here. I'm just trying to bed the end of the spindle into the hearthboard so that the two surfaces are really happy with each other before I cut out the notch. So how's that look? Okay, so you can see here I've got a little bit of a black line, but I've got a little ways to go till I've fully bended in the top. So it's going to need a bit more. Now let's look at what's happened to the end here. You can see that that's greatly been reduced to that point, and it started to marry the shape inside here. Now at this point I should probably readjust this and make it a bit skinnier again, otherwise I'm going to find myself creating friction up here. My newly made spindle is now fully bedded in. You can see all that lovely powder. This is what we need to catch on our little catch tray, which could be absolutely anything. It could be an offcut, could be a leaf, could be anything really. That's the gold, that's the stuff that will get hot enough to hold itself and create an ember that we then tip into a tinder bundle to make the fire. So you can see just this offcut of this large log is going to go on to make a really good hearthboard, just like this one here. It's been used many times, but the all important part now is to make that notch, and this will be covered in our other video, which is all about technique. So again, so what I've done is I've made the start of a set, or made a set from, or the key components from a set. Everything can be made from what was one giant log, and that is your ember.